but haven't been. Once a month we have what we call our full moon loving kindness and compassion meditation. It's usually in the evening, but today, or this month, it fell on today. So today's the full moon, even though it's a little more romantic, to come out at night, the full moon, so we're not going to be able to see it till later. But so it's usually an evening, there's a talk, we do some meditation, and then there's music. And so for those of you who are new, this is a little unusual today, not our usual Sunday program. Yeah, so loving kindness and compassion. Everybody know those words? Anybody not know it? Okay. Does the world need more of it? We all know that too, don't we? So in the Buddhist tradition, we say our practice has two wings like a bird. One is the wing of wisdom, meditation, insight, concentration, all the things, mindfulness, all the things we practiced earlier, but also equally, not just subsidiary or secondary to, but equal to our cultivation of wisdom is their cultivation of compassion and loving kindness. Love. And loving kindness, compassion, and in Buddhist tradition we have a third one called joy and the joy of others. These are all aspects of the human heart-mind that all of us know, right? All of us know these. These are not particular to any special religion or spiritual path. These are just very human emotions. But what is unique here is that these are practices that we can develop. So while we might say, there are people in my life that I'm kind to, and there are people in my life that I'm loving to, and there are people in my life when I hear they do well, I'm very happy for them, you see? So that's something we all know, but what we don't know is that we can extend these to everyone. So this takes what is a kind of a normal human positive emotion, wholesome emotion, and turn it into a spiritual value because it's something that we are cultivating, that we're offering to everyone. So this is something we don't know. And this is something we don't practice. Or this is something, if we do know or practice, we have trouble with. I started out in a Zen tradition where the emphasis was completely on meditation, awakening, anyhow. And while compassion was mentioned, there was sort of a sense it's just going to happen. Right? It's going to develop as you develop. Then after 7 years of studying that practice, I was fortunate to be able to travel to Buddhist Asia, and my journey began in India, in a place called, this is 1975, a place called Dharamsala, which was the residence of the Dalai Lama, who I'm sure you're familiar with, and it was one of the major exile communities. And they had they call it the Library of Works and Art, Tibetan Library of Works and Archives, that had a whole program of having great teachers there speak with translators. So there were, a nice group of non-Tibetans who were there learning Buddhism. And one of the things that I learned there, that I hadn't known, was that there's a whole body of practices that people develop and practice to develop their heart. So it didn't have to be something that just kind of randomly awakened in us, but it's something that we could cultivate, and cultivate quite diligently. I mean, I was quite surprised when I began to encounter, monastics or people who would go on long retreats. And when I was able to meet them and talk to them, I thought, oh, well, they must be going on a deep meditative retreat to awaken their minds. And they'd say, oh, no, I'm meditating on the suffering of human beings to awaken my compassion. I'm meditating on the kindness of sentient beings to awaken my own kindness. And these are people who go on retreat 3, 6, 12 months a year, and this was their practice. And that was really quite surprising to me. And we'll talk more about it, and then as I began to learn these practices of loving kindness and compassion, enjoying the joy of others, what really struck me, and I had always heard about, there in the Buddhist tradition, the Buddha taught the 4 immeasurables, and the 4th one was equality, equanimity. But the way the Tibetans taught it, you began there. You see? You began there. Because again, so in Buddhist tradition, we often talk about 2 levels of practice. One is Hinayana practice, one is Mahayana practice. Hinayana practice means small vehicle. Right? Mahayana means great vehicle. Small vehicle means like a what? Like a motorcycle? In other words, there's only room for one. It'll get you where you want to go, or a car that only had room for one. So it'll get you where you want to go, but you're going by yourself. And so when they talk about Hinayanas, it would mean that one's spiritual aspiration is to heal and transform just me. Just me. Mahayana, a great vehicle, the analogy would be like it's a bus. Like, there's room for everybody. I want to go with everybody. Right. So it was very interesting to me that before you got into the practices of loving kindness and compassion, you had to first develop this view that included everyone. Right. I want to learn to be friendly and kind to everyone. And right away, that really kind of hits us, doesn't it? Because for most of us, the people that we are willing to radiate our loving kindness and compassion to and our understanding to is who? What? Yeah, the ones it's easy for, and which means what? Family, friends, what? Pets. Right, especially pets. Pets are too easy. Pets are too easy. Yeah, why do we love our pets? Why do we love our pets? Because they love us. Unconditionally. They don't care how we look. They don't care how we smell. Right? They don't care whether we're successful, whether we have money or don't. Right? They don't care about our political views. They don't care about our social views. Do they? They just care about us. Yeah. And in the presence of unconditional love, how do we feel? Good. Good. So again, this kind of turning things around and saying, before we really cultivate this loving, compassionate heart, we need to open our view. We need to go beyond the ones that it's easy for. the ones that it's easy to like, the one that it's easy to love, the ones that we easily feel compassion for, the ones that we naturally, when we hear they've gotten good things, we're happy for them. See, that's a very small universe of people, isn't it? And there's no growth there. There's no challenge there. There's no awakening there. So the challenge for us is to, how do I begin to see my commonality, my sameness, my mutual responsibility for everyone. And when you say everyone, see, that sounds like very big, but everyone means everybody I encounter. So, see, to have the big view is, it can be very abstract, but it becomes concrete, meaning everyone I encounter, such as, let's just begin, right here, right? So we're a group of people, aren't we? And most of us don't know each other. And we're very diverse, our backgrounds, our lives, what we think, what we feel, what our political views, what our orientations are, all the ways that society separates and people separate and discriminate from each other, right? We all know about that. But what's the commonality of all of us, of everyone? We want to be happy. Would we agree? Yeah. Everyone wants to be happy. And the opposite of that is what? Nobody wants to suffer. Does anybody here want to suffer? Does anybody here want their loved ones to suffer? No. And so everybody in here, no matter what your political views, your age, your social background, sexual orientation, everything, we're all the same in that. That's very important to see. And that's a message that, is not out there. But this is the message that the Buddha taught, and that we want to learn. We want to, one of the first practices I learned, like you go, how do you do equality? How do you develop that equality? So you know how you do it? Are you interested? How do you do it? Well, first you do what I just did. You meditate deeply on, is that true? That everybody wants to be happy, whatever that means to them, and nobody wants to be suffering. Is that true? Once you enter that world and you start looking at everybody you see, when I say everybody, I mean everybody. No matter how they're showing up in the world, underneath that mask that people wear, in their hearts, at the end of the day, they want to be happy. They don't want to suffer. So kind of getting that is a good first step. And then actually, as you begin to see people, as you go through your life, you think this way. Like, we just look at each other in here. Everybody here, whether you're here for the first time or you've been coming for years, whether you know anything about this stuff or you don't, that's one thing we all know. We all want to be happy. And we all want our loved ones and our friends to be happy. And we don't want our loved ones and friends to suffer. Is that true? See, we know that. But we forget that in all the ways we polarize from each other. So that's kind of one way to begin. Another way to begin is a very simple meditation. So close your eyes. Okay? And we're gonna deal with three people here. We'll start simple. One person is somebody you really like. In the middle is somebody that you're kind of neutral, indifferent to. It could be, somebody you pass in the store, or somebody you see at work. It's, you don't have like or dislike from them. They're just a neutral figure. Somebody who, checkout person in Publix or Winn-Dixie. It's just somebody you see. We're neutral. And then the third is somebody we dislike. Okay. So we have these three people. We imagine them in front of us. And first let the two, the middle and the one on the right, which means the one we're neutral to and the one we dislike, and bring forward the one you really like, the one that you naturally have positive feelings for. Okay? And just let those positive feelings come forth when you see them before you. Now, you begin to investigate. Why do I like this person? Why are they on the positive side? Is it because, I don't know, why is it? Family? So, family connection, and therefore I was taught early on or something to love or like family members. So I've always cultivated that to them. Perhaps it's a friend. Why are they my friend? Why do I like them? Is it because they like me? Is it because we share similar values or similar ideas? Why do I like them? And especially for friends. Before they were my friend, before I knew them, did I like them? Did I love them? Are there people who were my friends that I haven't thought about in years? Are there family members that I dislike? Again, are there friends that I don't give a thought for in decades? So we begin to see and again, I'm just doing it not very in an elaborate way, we begin to see that so much of it is happenstance. So many of the relationships we have people who are now on our orbit on the side of we care about and love, they were strangers to us at one point. We could have passed them in the street and couldn't have cared less about them. And now I care about them. Why is that? Happenstance. If all of a sudden my friends develop different political or social views, would they still be my friend? If family members had different social, political, other kind of views, would I still care about them? And then if they change back, would I then care about them? So we're trying to see the conditionality of these relationships and how they change. And then, just for the sake of time, we let this person recede and we bring out that neutral person. That person that we're, neither positive or negative, we're just sort of indifferent to, neutral toward them. And you reflect. Again, there's many ways, but it's got to be very personal. Are there people in your life now, again, that you didn't know and that you were neutral to, indifferent to them? If you saw their name in an obituary, would go on to the next one. You wouldn't stop. there many people that you were neutral to in the past that are now in the positive? Or maybe they're now in the negative. Have you ever had the experience of just meeting somebody for the first time, you don't really know them, and immediately you connect with them? Have you ever had the experience, you meet somebody for the first time, and you immediately disconnect with them? Then you might run into them years later and connect or you're beginning to see the randomness and the very particularness of our relationships. And then, of course, we go to the one on, we let that one recede and we go to the one on the negative side. Have we always been negative to this person? If we had run into them in other circumstances, would we be negative to them? If they change, would we now go from being negative to them to positive? Or are there people you can think about your past over the years, that people you used to really dislike, you don't even think about them anymore? So when you begin to reflect in this way, and you see the randomness and the conditionality of the way we like people, dislike people, or indifferent people, and how changeable that all is, and we come back to where we started. Everybody wants to be happy. The ones I like, the ones I dislike, the ones I'm indifferent to, they all want to be happy. They don't want to suffer. So rather than relating to humanity in the usual way we do it, liking these few, hating these few, and being indifferent to most, we begin to open up. And so the next part of this meditation is you have all three of you in front, all three of those people that in the past, and again, you don't begin until you really have kind of brought all of them into the orbit of understanding. And now, to all three of them, see if you can do this, you generate the kind heart. The kind heart, which is metta or maitri, is just the heart that we all know. It comes from the root of friend. With our friends, we don't have to work at being kind, caring, friendly, happy when we see them. It flows naturally. But we only do it for so few. Can I begin to look at everybody with the eyes of friendship? Doesn't mean we don't have our own particular friends. Can I look at the neutral person, knowing that they have their own causes and conditions in this life? They have their own struggles, they have their own happinesses, The practice of metta is simply to look at a human being and go, whatever, whoever, whatever, I want you to be happy. I'd like you to be happy. I wish you were happy. I wish you were free of suffering. I wish your life went well. I wish all your basic needs were met, and that you lived in this world feeling safe, secure. Yeah, that's my wish for you. This is for the checkout person in Publix. These are the people we pass in the street. These are the neighbors we don't know. These are the people at work or at school. Yeah, why not? See them all with the eyes of friendship. it's a way of the heart. Nobody needs to know, except it manifests in a kind of openness to other people. When we have friends, when we're in there, when we're present to them, we feel open and relaxed. We're among friends. What if I had that kind of sense within my heart with everyone? With everyone means the ones on the right. You know those people? The ones we don't like. Why don't we like them? They don't do the things we want them to do. They don't say the things we want them to say. Right? We don't like them. But of course, we don't do the same things that they want us to do or say the things, right? So they don't like us. I don't like you, you don't like me, I hate you, you hate me, and we end up with what? The world we have today. Right? If you want to just cut to the chase, cut through all the talking heads, yeah. We don't see each other as the same. We don't see each other as all brothers and sisters in the same human family. You know, it's interesting, if you think about your friends, right? Think about your friends. Are they all really stellar human beings? All just kind of one step below sainthood? Yeah, we laugh. Why do we laugh? What? Not happening. And yet what? Look at all the slack we cut them. Look at all the understanding. Well, you know, they had a rough childhood, or they're having a hard day, or got it. If you knew who their parents were, you'd know why they were the way they, right? See, we say these things to our friends, but there's somebody over there who's acting the same exact way. They should be different. They shouldn't be who they are. My friends, they could be any way they want. I'm so understanding to them. Always there, always supportive. You see how particular we are. It means our hearts aren't very open, very narrow. It's got a lot of ways, it's got a lot of criteria. Right? Right? Most people, right? You got to pass a whole bunch of, assessments, right, before I open my heart to you. My heart club, very exclusive, right? Very exclusive, only for the elite. Who are the elite? My choice. I choose the elite who are going to be in my circle of caring. Again, so learning to open. Does it come easy? No. Because our conditioning is what? Our historical conditioning, the way we were raised, the society we were in, the culture, the media is all telling us what? What? Tribal. Very, very tribal. Right? We think we're so sophisticated, one world, we're all, it's like tribal. Close your eyes. Do you know your tribe? What's your tribe? Think about it. What's the tribe that you run with, that you identify with? I think if we're honest, we'll go, yeah. Some of us have very rigid, defined criteria for our tribe. Some of us, it's a little more open. Yeah. Tribal. You know, when the Buddha taught 2,600 years ago in northern India, yeah, all kinds of little city-states and groups and tribes and all kinds of stuff going on. And for all of them, he taught one Dharma. And in his community, his sangha, he accepted everyone. At his time in India, there was a caste system, still exists today, very rigid, right? Very rigid caste system, hierarchy of castes. In the Buddha Sangha, he accepted everyone equally. Caste was no longer a criteria. This was 2,600 years ago. Questions? Any questions about this? If you're online, just chat your question in. If you're here in the hall, yeah, I mean, does this seem like a lot of spiritual gobbledygook? There's somebody in the back, somebody up front, and yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The hard part I have is separating the person from the actions. There are people I can be kind to who voted for actions that are seriously problematic. There are teachers where I work who do problematic things.
Yes.
So I can have kindness and compassion for the person, but I don't know how to do it for the actions.
Well, we're talking about the person, right? We're talking about the person. This is the important thing. You know, everybody know who Gandhi is? Gandhi said, hate the sin, not the sinner. That's what you're talking about. Once we rob human beings of their humanity, you know, it's all downhill from there. And that's what people are doing everywhere. Once you rob people of their humanity, once you turn them into the other, once you turn them into the enemy, then you can do anything you want with them, including killing them. Right? I mean, before all that happens, there's a process. And the process is the antithesis of what we're talking about today. Yeah, so it doesn't mean that in the social sphere one doesn't take stands or, but we don't do it the way most people do it, like, you're an idiot, which means I'm smart. But they're over there thinking, I'm the idiot and they're smart. I'm the one with good values, you're the one who's immoral and unethical. But they're over there thinking the same thing about you. And then where are we? Well, again, we are where we are today on the path the world is taking, that our country is taking. So there's got to be a counterforce. This is a counterforce. Yes, in the back, somebody had a question. Yeah. And then, Bill, if anybody's chatting anything in, you'll send it down.
Hi.
Hi.
How do you practice unconditional love in romantic relationships, especially when you have a jealous partner that when they see you open your heart, not only to them, but to others?
Well, I hate to tell you, my friend. So the Buddha taught his teachings, which are called the Four Immeasurables. Loving kindness, which is, as I said, really friendship. All the qualities that we naturally have for our friends. Compassion, which I didn't get into, which means I want to. It's not just empathy. It's not just I feel the suffering of another. I want to alleviate their suffering. That's what we want to do. The third is joy in the joy of others, which is, again, something we naturally have when we hear our friends or loved ones, something's good happen to them. How do we feel? Great. When we hear the people we don't like, something good's to happen to them, we go, shouldn't get it, right? We're envious, we're jealous, okay. Those are the three qualities of love. Guess what the Buddha didn't include? Just what you said. romantic love. Because romantic love, well, it's something we all know, there's a lot of attachment. See, this is a kind of love that's very open, very accepting, right? Romantic love is what? It's just what you said. There's a lot of what? Attachment. And when there's attachment, there's a lot of control and manipulation. So I think the challenge is, how do I take these qualities that we're talking about today into my relationships? And that's a challenge. Because again, like you said, in romantic relationships, there's a lot of attachment, a lot of needs, right? Actually, yesterday we had 90 people here and online for relationship on for our workshop Angie and I did on relationship as a spiritual path. Yeah, you gotta make your relationships as a spiritual path and see, that need to control. And also it's because in relationships, especially intimate relationships, we have agendas, conscious and unconscious. We have needs we want the other person to meet, right? We have desires, we have needs, we have wants, we have expectations, we have unmet needs from within ourselves, from our childhood, that we're looking to the other person, right, to fulfill. So we're not talking about that here, are we? We're talking about something very open and spacious. Yeah, so the challenge is, my friend, how do I take this, cultivate this, and then bring it into. But when you think about your partner and their jealousy, right? Is that that's what you said? Yeah. I'd say they're suffering. You see, we got to see underneath, right? It manifests as jealousy, you need to want to control it, right? But underneath that, they're suffering. Why do they have that need to control you? Now again, I think you're talking about a jealousy that doesn't have a basis. It's not like you're out there playing the field in a committed relationship, right? Then you might say, there's some basis for that. But we're talking about that kind of jealousy where right? That different kind.
Like, there are some people who are closed, like you said, their heart is narrow.
Yeah.
And then when they see their partner with an open heart who smiles at people, who hugs and loving, that makes them fear that someone else will just take you away from
you. Yeah, so again, they're suffering. They're suffering. And rather than getting into the story, you can acknowledge, my dear, I see your suffering. Yeah. And that my way of being in the world doesn't bring you happiness. I can see you're afraid. So, it's good to acknowledge. That's compassion. Compassion is, I'm present to someone suffering. I see you're suffering. You see, don't get caught in the story. They're suffering. Right? How can I help you? How can I help you? One of the challenges of relationships, as everybody knows here, is what? Accepting the other person as they are, not how we want them to be. And guess what the biggest challenge seems to be in the world this day? Accepting that there are people in the world who we don't think should be in the world. Is that true? Right? People with their views and blah, blah, should not be in this world, at least not in my world. Again, unfortunately we don't have the control, and no one empowered us. And again, they're looking at us the same way. They don't want us in their world. Is that true? See, we never go to the other side and go, gee, they think they're right. They think they have the right values. They think they have the right ideas. And I'm the one who's, et cetera, et cetera. How do we, again, coming back to where we start, how do we get out of this very narrow, These I like, these I don't like, these are indifferent to. 180, 360 view. And we're all the same. In our tradition, we have a thing where we say, don't be attached to views. It doesn't say you can't have views. Don't be attached to views. Be open throughout your whole life to the viewpoints of others. Yesterday I was teaching that. Curiosity. Well, that's fascinating. This person has a totally different view than me. Right? But then we wall off. Rather than going, well, that's interesting. I wonder how they see things. Curious. Interested. Right? That's a connecting. That's how we connect to people. Right? These other teachers. Interesting having a dialogue with them. I'm trying to understand. I don't understand that. I would have responded, but I'm interested in you see, connecting. And when people connect to you and show interest, even if it's different, their walls come down. Or at least they see you differently. It's not polarized. Anybody here polarized? Is that a word we use a lot these days? Polarized. How do you get out of that? Right? How do you create a different world that has a different outcome? Right? So, this is one way. Through the cultivation of this heart that offers friendship. I often say to people, we live on Nebraska Avenue. Even though it's changing, there's still a lot of, I call this the avenue of suffering. I mean, it's changing over the years, but just a lot of people who are suffering. And a lot of people who are suffering, not just, they're homeless, but also, drug addiction, prostitution, the whole gamut. And it's very easy to judge them and wall off from them and see them as the other. But I often have said to our members over the years, what if you saw one of these people and all of a sudden you looked and you went, oh my God, that's so-and-so from high school. Right? That's so-and-so from high school. Or if you're older, that's my son's best friend from high school. Or that's my third cousin. What would immediately shift? Immediately shift in you. Indigo is like, oh, God, people, losers. They should all be swept away. What immediately shifts when you acknowledge connection? What would shift? Your heart opens, and you would do what? You go over and go, is that you? Mary, Jimmy, whatever. Is that you? Wow. Talk to me. What's going on? How'd you end up here? Right? You see how naturally we would do that? Right? It's so simple. It's natural when the what? The heart is open. Right? When we acknowledge the humanity of each other. Even the ones that are, especially the ones that are harder. That's how we develop in this practice. Are there any other questions? Bill? Yes.
There's one online. It's more of
Yes.
a comment, maybe for your comment. It's difficult to think of a neutral person, tend to either love or dislike.
Who we don't either love or dislike?
And she is easy seeing love and dislike. She is like neutral. She doesn't
Neutral,
see-
there's 6 billion people in this world. Take the ones you really like, take the ones you really dislike, and everybody who's left over, they're neutral. It's true. We just don't care about it. I mean, we don't look at people and go, and go, we say, how you doing? Da, da, da. It's like, if you saw them as your friend, you go, how are you today? Like we really care. You can do that with strangers. It's very interesting. How are you? Yeah, tell me, how are you? How's it going? And really mean it. Yeah. So we take people, this great mass of people that we're neutral or indifferent to. Indifferent is not like a callous means. It means that we pass them in the street, I used to give an analogy, it's like, you're going down a one-way street, not too fast, right? And all of a sudden you see somebody coming up slowly on the one-way street. What's your first thought? What's your first thought? Dummy. Who's this idiot? Can you believe this idiot? Then they get closer and you see it's your best friend. Yeah. And then what happens? What happens? Brooke, what happens? Immediately. What? Yeah. It's the same idiot. But they're no longer an idiot. They're your friend. And you go, well, that's funny. They must have made a mistake. You see, we're understanding, we're forgiving. It's natural. But this other person, we don't cut anybody else any slack, do we? So it's learning that. Yes.
Thank you for the words, but I've been trying to think about how we have a limited amount of energy and I guess the role of discernment in compassion, because I know love is abundant and everywhere, but time and energy, and so I guess I'm just wondering the role of discernment.
You mean in the application of?
Yeah, knowing when to walk away from a conversation that's just not going anywhere, or a relationship that the person I hear go and help someone, or open your heart.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, if the person isn't helping themselves or is just stuck in a, I don't know, that's just what I've been
that's
thinking about.
excellent. Okay. So this is a very brief talk. What's your name?
Jade.
Jade, yeah. So Jade. Yeah. So in the Buddhist teaching, the heart of compassion has to have the eye of intelligence, wisdom, which we call discernment. That's very important, right? Your heart goes out to somebody. Has anybody ever, your heart goes out to somebody and you help them and makes it worse? Ever happened to anybody? Yeah. So our heart is open, but our intelligence is discerning. Again, compassion in Buddhism, karuna, means wanting to alleviate the suffering of another being. Much of when we talk about compassion, what it really means to us is empathy. Like they're suffering, and I can feel their suffering. Compassion is the active, how can I help them relieve their suffering? And that's where intelligence, discernment, is that right? Does that make sense? Yeah, so they have to both be present. So, some are easier. Sometimes we can just be very open-hearted. Benefit of the doubt. And then you watch and see what happens, and you realize what? I'm not really helping ease their suffering at all. Or I could be making it worse. Right? That's discernment. It's intelligence. Yeah, we want to help alleviate the suffering of people. Is that easy? No, it's not easy. One last question, then we'll have some music. Yes, in the back there? Maybe the musicians could kind of come up on stage and I can introduce you in a minute, but yes.
Hey, thank you, Fred.
Uh-huh.
I always wondered this. At the start of class, we talk about being free from the inferiority, superiority, and the equality complex. I understand the first two, but given today, can you explain why we need to get
Yeah,
rid of the
what is this
equality?
equality complex,
Yeah.
right?
Thank
I thought equality is a good thing, isn't it? Yeah. So these are, in our tradition, we put a lot of focus that, the cause of our suffering a lot is our egocentricity, right? So ego or self has different stances, right? The superiority is what? I'm better than everybody else, right? Smarter, better looking, better values, superiority complex. The opposite is the inferiority complex. Everybody's better than me. Something's wrong with me, I'm deficient, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, you know what I mean? That's the inferiority complex. I'm too screwed up, Okay. The equality complex is, hey, I'm as good as everybody else. But that's not true either, is it? Some people are smarter than us, right? Some people are more musical than us, like these people. So that's the equality complex. It's sort of like, hey, right? So we're not all equal. We're all equal in this. We're supposed to be all equal in the sight of the law and all that. This is not that. This is the stance of ego, right? Hey, why did they get the commendation? I'm as good as them. Hey, how come everybody, when I walk into the party, how come nobody's looking at me? I'm as good as anybody else, right? You see what I'm saying? So that's what it means. It's a stance of ego. And again, they all limit us from being free. And then just being able to enter relationships of all kind without these complexes. So thank you, everyone. That's our talk. And we have a treat because usually we have music. So for those of you who are new and those who don't come that often, please join with us. So we're going to be having two kinds of, I think we have 4 offerings, and we're going to have two kinds of offerings. One are more like songs, and they're songs that come from the Plum Village Thich Nhat Hanh tradition. Everybody knows who Thich Nhat Hanh is? Yeah. He loved people to sing. I never saw him sing too much, but he loved to have other people sing, and he was a poet, and a lot of his poetry, was turned into songs in Vietnam, in Vietnamese. So he would love songs. So Plum Village tradition, they have songs, and then the other 2 are a little more serious. One is from this work called The Path of the Bodhisattva, The Path of the Enlightened Being. So it's quite kind of deep, but you'll see the words. But it really talks about the deepest aspiration of our hearts. And then the other is what's called the metta song. Metta is loving kindness, and it's really one of our members wrote the music and sort of annotated a very short Buddhist teaching called, the sutra, the Metta Sutra, or the Sutra on Loving Kindness. So we'll be chanting those, singing, chanting. Does that sound good? And what do you want to begin with, Rick?
Start with the Shantideva chant.
We're going to start with the Shantideva chant. And maybe you want to give a little...
Shantideva lived around 1,500 years ago, and he wrote about how you become a Buddha. What should I